Good evening. I'm a third grade teacher. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, you know, old habits die hard. What can I say? We're excited that you're here. We're especially excited with tonight's weather and the fact that, you know, you're doing us instead of the president. That's way exciting. So we're very thrilled that you're here. I'm not going to talk long. I just want to do a couple of quick things. Please make sure you got a name tag. Please make sure you got a brochure. This next year we're going to be doing all films. And so what we would love for you to do is if you know of someone who has a film that is about or by people of color, and we want it to be about people of color, but it doesn't have to be a person of color that it's by. And preferably here in Portland and in Oregon. So please let me know, write it on your evaluation and have the name of the film and the contact information for that person. If nothing else, just the name of the film, and if you know the director, put that on your evaluation. Also, out front we have paper if you want to take notes. We're going to be having a drawing later on. You know, when we talked about, if you were listening, we talked about the people of color or white people who are your buddies. Folks, do you know what I'm talking about? See, y'all weren't listening. You were not listening. This is the kind of stuff that makes people have gray hair. I wonder where all this came from. So anyway, at the very end, we're going to have a drawing, and you should have a slip of paper, and what you're going to do, you're going to have 3 pieces of paper. I'll explain it again at the end. This gets very confusing for folks for some reason. You guys can sit wherever you want. You get your pick.
I'm really sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying, there's no reservations. So, okay, so let's say this is you. You're hot pink. And this is Susie, and she's yellow. And so you two write your name, email, phone number, each. You write yours there, Susie writes hers here, and then you exchange those. And then when I say we're going to have a drawing, then you put both of your names on a third one and put that in the basket. And then somebody's going to win a gift certificate for the 2 of you to go to Any McMinimans and eat and get to know each other. So that's what this is all about, is just getting people to get to know each other. I'm a firm believer that if we knew each other, we would find out that we have just about everything in common and very little not in common. So our next month is tonight, in case you're trying to figure out if you're in the right place, is Birthright Citizenship, Constitutional Right Under Attack, documentary film 14, Dred Scott, along Kim Hart and Vanessa Lopez. And our speakers are Roland, I just want blank on your last name, Wu. Roland Wu and Galisky. So they're going to tell you a little bit about the film, then they'll show a clip from the film, and then do some more talking about their reasoning for making this film, and then there will be a 10-minute Q&A, and then we'll go into small group discussion, which most people love to do. I would like to recommend that when you're doing your small group discussion, this is kind of hard in here because we're on couches, but it's so much more interesting when you talk to people that you don't know. And I'm just always amazed when people tell me the conversations, the discussions that they have, the things that they talk about that I'm like, really? They ain't got nothing to do with the program, but it's good discussion. But that's okay too. Also, February, if I could talk, I'd be dangerous, January 26th at Cleveland High School, we're having Race Talks 2, which is the Community Police Forum. It will be in the cafeteria. Cleveland's at 3400 Southeast 26th Avenue and Powell Boulevard. Please come. We're trying to get people to come and tell the police what they think about the job they're doing. I think they need to know. Good, bad, and indifferent. And it's been a really good program for everybody. Also, we have the evaluation. The evaluation is so we can apply for grants and tell the funders who comes what you think about Race Talks. And on the back, there is how to conduct your own small group discussion. And because we're in couches, it's not really conducive to having a facilitator. So some of you might have facilitators, some of you might not. But you can conduct your own discussion group here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Roland Wu and Ann Galisky.
I'll give Roland a break. You can come up, come and show yourself. So we're going to show about 18 minutes of this film. It's a 67-minute film. It's not yet available for personal purchase because we want people to see it together. We want people to do what you're going to do tonight. But since we're not showing the whole thing tonight, I can announce that we are showing the whole thing tomorrow at PCC Rock Creek, starting at 4. Free screening. It's not close to here, but it's 4 o'clock, and we'll have an awesome panel discussion of some student activists from PCC. And we have a table. We'll stick around after the whole program. We'll chat with you about how to bring this to your community, your neighborhood, your schools, how to get it out into the world. I'm really honored that you came to hear us instead of the last State of the Union. I really am. I thought, are they going to leave when they find out that it's not the president speaking here at McMillan's? But thank you for coming. Thanks to Donna Maxey for inviting us. It's such an honor to be here and to be with all of you. We'll talk to you right after. There we go. Section 1 of the 14th Amendment says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. One of the most important sentences, in my opinion, of the Constitution. Come on up, Roland. This is Roland Wu. I'm Ann Galisky. We are like a generation and a half between us of difference. I'm more than twice Roland's age, and he has been so patient with me and has been there from almost the very beginning of pre-production and creating this film. So I'm really excited to be up here with him. So now I have to go get my notes. So thanks once again to all of you for being here. We're really excited to engage in this conversation. And I can't say enough what an honor it is and what a privilege it is and what a responsibility it is to be a white person and talk about race in America. That's my opening statement. I want to start by asking Roland some questions, and we're going to kind of interview each other and then give you a chance to ask us questions. But Roland, I want to know why you were interested in working on this film. You've been working with Graham Street Productions for 3 years now. What moved you to work on this film, and why did you get involved?
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Donna Maxey for inviting us. I guess the circumstances that led me to working on this film, which I hope that all of you will have a chance to view it in its entirety. Like Ann said, tomorrow at PCC Rock Creek there's a screening at 4 p.m. I was in my last year of college here in Portland, and I had the opportunity to view a documentary called Papers, Stories of Undocumented Youth, which Ann is also the director of. And I think it came at a moment in my life when I had kind of had my head buried in the sand a little bit in a kind of very academic and collegiate environment. Papers when I saw Papers, it really gave me a sense of an entire world that I was not engaging with, that I was kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it gave me the sense that there was much out there to learn about kind of current immigration policy and activism and politics, and so through the film I got to organize a screening at my college and met Anne and got to know her, and 14, which you saw a brief part of, is in many ways a kind of sequel to Papers. Papers is about young people who have grown up in the United States but are undocumented. 14 is very much about the history of citizenship in the United States, but also the citizenship of children of undocumented immigrants. And so there's kind of a natural evolution between the two films. I very much wanted to combine my interest in the field of documentaries with Anne's work, and you know, I have citizenship because I was born here, like many people, and it's something that I always took for granted. And so working on this film is something that allowed me the opportunity to kind of investigate this history and to understand what the legacy of citizenship has been, and also where we're going with it currently.
You can ask me a hard question.
Do you want to talk briefly about what led you to making this film, and if you have a personal connection with birthright citizenship?
Thanks, Roland. One of the things that I did in preparation for today was, I had done some of this, but not to this extent. I made myself read the Dred Scott decision. This is just the majority opinion by Justice Taney, who you saw. And I was reading some of it out loud to my partner and the producer, Rebecca Shine, earlier this morning, and I have to say, even though I've read it, even though I've been immersed in this for 3 years, there was part of it that I read that was so appalling that I burst into tears. So hopefully when I read that to you today, that won't happen. This is very personal to me. Or you can lay it down. Because I am the daughter of an immigrant, and that immigrant, my dad, was undocumented. It's a part of the story that I like to tell because people don't expect it, and that is the fun part. I'll tell you more of that story, but what I wanted to answer today about why I made this film was that since I was a kid, and certainly in my adult life, but since I was a kid, I've always been interested in inclusion and exclusion, and the cliques, and the how can we not do this clique thing, and how can I be friends with everyone, and why do we have to hurt each other's feelings, and all of that exclusion stuff from the time I could talk, probably before I could talk, just seemed so dumb. And I think that really, as I was reading Justice Taney's opinion, it is all about inclusion and exclusion, and who our understanding of who we is in America. And I think we are, I was trying not to say it this way, but it's going to come out this way, laboring under a misapprehension that the founders started with, that Justice Taney certainly had, and that still exists today, shockingly, that some people are better than other people. What? Baffling. Children know that's dumb. How come we forget that as we grow up? So I'm going to read a couple of shocking parts of this opinion, and I would encourage any of you who are serious about learning about the history of racism in America, and I presume that many of you are since you're here tonight. Read this. Read as much as you can read, and then read some more. This is in Justice Taney's majority opinion. The question before us is whether the class of persons described in the plea and abatement compose a portion of this people and are constituent members of this sovereignty. He's talking about Dred and Harriet. We think they are not, and that they are not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States. On the contrary, at that time, this was the Declaration of Independence, at that time they were considered as a subordinate and inferior class of beings who have been subjugated by the dominant race, and whether emancipated or not, yet remained subject to their authority and had no rights or privileges but such as those who held the power and the government might choose to grant them. Heavy. Are we over that? Have we even talked about this? If you're listening to the political debates right now, I think if you're listening to the front runner of the Republican race, I think we could say we're not over this. And how are we going to get over it? We're going to have to talk about it. We just have to talk about it. And that's why I applaud all of you for being here. Now I have to compose myself, so I'm going to ask Roland another question. It's really unfair, but I'm the boss, so. Roland, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening today in terms of birthright citizenship in the United States and what is at risk, particularly in Texas?
I think it's interesting to point out that a couple of years ago when I started working with Anne, birthright citizenship was not something that I really knew anything about necessarily. And many of my friends didn't, and many people who I would talk to about kind of the concept of the documentary, they were unfamiliar with this phrase. But now, fast forward a few years, and it's something that is very much in the forefront of kind of the presidential election, and I think that it's indicative of a shift in the tone of the national rhetoric. It shows, I think, the precariousness of the citizenship laws in this country. And I guess more specifically in Texas, there is currently a case unfolding where the US-born children of undocumented parents are being denied birth certificates. And this is happening right now. There's a case, and it's under Paralicerna, and there are 28 plaintiffs. These are parents with their children who are grouped together and are suing the Texas Department of Health Services, which is the office that issues birth certificates. And so and at the crux of this case is the Texas officials are saying that because of the national origin of the parents, these US-born children who have every right to citizenship aren't able to have birth certificates, which leads to, you can't enroll in a Head Start program, for example, if you're young. It's in my opinion, very much discriminating against children based on the national origin of their parents. And so I think this case is from what I understand, I think it is an attempt to constrict the rights of children and of people, and to threaten people, threaten families. And we will be traveling to Texas this month, in a couple weeks, to meet with the plaintiffs and their families, and to meet with the lawyers who are suing on behalf of these families to try to protect their constitutional rights. I'll leave it at that for now. And would you talk a little bit about, some more about your family's story that you hinted at?
Thanks. Donna, I'm sure I can count on you to get the hook out, right? Where are you? Okay, we're all right, because I don't see you moving. I'm going to keep going. We'll just do a little bit more between us, and then we'll open it up for questions. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about my family story. I grew up in Los Angeles. It was so exciting to hear these stories. It was like the most exciting adventure stories. And I knew my grandfather, and he lived a long time. I knew my aunts and uncles. Everyone lived nearby. And it was I call it our pioneer story. It was how they got across, and my grandfather fought in the Tsar's army. He was conscripted. He was in the Ukraine, conscripted to fight in World War I. This is the short version. Went away without leave, got caught, sent to Siberia. The Bolsheviks let anyone out who would fight for them, and they said, this is his accent, sure, we'll fight for you, sure. And they all ran away. They went wherever they could. And then he married, they had 4 children. They lived in the Ukraine, and he was a small-time farmer. And in 1928, Stalin was in power. Things were starting to get really bad and look like it was going to be really rough on the Ukraine, which it certainly did end up being. Forced. There was eventual forced starvation, and millions of people died. It's a little-known story. But they got out, and they went to Mexico. They lived in Mexico for 7 years, and that's where my dad was born, in a little village called Galiana. And at a certain point, they decided now's the time to go. My grandfather went to the border with their bit of money that they had saved up, got papers, paid for papers, met with an American lawyer. And when he went back to get the family and brought everyone back, and they went to pick up their papers and their documents, and the lawyer was gone, and the papers were gone, and the money was gone, and he decided we're going anyway. I think my cousin's here. And this is her father's story too. We grew up with this. We were so proud to hear this story. And in the making of papers, I actually found out more. I got to see some of their documentation. There was a whole story about how my dad, they had a little sister who died in an accident, and their mom also died in that same accident. So my dad was the youngest at that point, and when the Red Scare came and they were ordered deported, they all had separate hearings. He went to his hearing as a 19-year-old. He's like, I got this. Tough East LA kid. I got this on my own. I'll just do it. And they were interviewing him, and in the interview, they were trying to catch him in a lie. Where were you here? Where were you then? And he said, "Aw, shit." And the immigration official turned off the tape recorder and said, "Do not disrespect this court," and turned it back on, and then wrote down in his records, Albert Joseph Galisky is a person of bad moral character, and we recommend that he be deported to the country of his birth because he said shit in the interview. So my dad likes to talk about this today and gave advice to young people. He said, when you go for your interview, don't say shit. But anyway, what I wanted to say in this context was that I read my aunt's papers a few years ago before she died, and it's her naturalization paper. She was married to a U.S. citizen. They had a U.S. citizen daughter, and in her papers it says, because it would be a hardship to the U.S. citizen husband and daughter, and because the applicant is a person of the white race, we recommend that she be allowed to stay. I need to tell you this because our family benefited from this terrible truth. And so I think it is legitimate and honest to say it. And, you know, we have 2 borders. Why are we concerned about one of them? We have a lot of ports and airports, but we seem to be obsessed about one border. Okay, now I'm sure I'm over time. Happy to talk to you more about that. Got you, Donna. Happy to talk to you more about that. And we have a microphone up here, or you could stand up and say your question from wherever you are.
Okay, so now it's Q&A. We're going to do about 10 minutes. If you have a question you want to ask them, go right ahead, and then we'll break into our small groups after that. So, does anyone have a question? Why don't you come up front and ask your question so that everyone can hear it on the mic.
Hello. Is this one on? Well, you can use our mic.
I guess that one's on. We'll ask you questions. You see how.
Okay, I have a question.
Please ask who you are.
Okay, my name is Rachel Kimbrough. I'm an ESL teacher in public school. So my question is more, I guess, an information question. I guess I want to know what, like aside from the lawsuit that you talked about or that's in progress, what are the other threats? What are the threats on birthright citizenship? And then I guess follow up to that is, are these threats really focused on Mexican families?
When we first were making the film, and then when the film first came out, I really thought that the biggest threat is about moving the conversation about immigration so far to the right that when we compromised in the middle, it would be like, okay, citizen children can be here but not vote. Or citizen children of undocumented parents can be here and just work and get nowhere near legalizing folks. I thought that it was all about really changing what a compromise would be. Now, I think really we cannot be complacent. Elizabeth Wydra, who was one of the speakers in the film, is of the Constitutional Accountability Center. And when I first met with her in a meeting off camera, she said, our understanding of the Constitution changes. You know, some years ago, not that long ago, the Second Amendment was not understood to mean that everyone can have a gun. It was an understanding that grew. So I think we cannot be complacent that we'll always have birthright citizenship just because in our lives we always have.
As we show in kind of other sections of the film that we didn't see today, there have been many legislative attempts to change the understanding or the interpretation of birthright citizenship, so that, and there's kind of a lot of details about that, but there's been bills introduced at least for the last 12 sessions. 12 years. Maybe, yeah. And so there's been that. There's also the kind of what Anne's talking about, the rhetorical attacks, which are kind of to move the national narrative in a certain direction. And then there's these lawsuits, and I think that the lawsuits, though they may be very focused, I do think that they're trying to kind of chip away at the constitutional rights of people, and are very in my opinion, discriminatory based on on the national origin of people. Yeah.
Another threat is if you tell people often enough and loudly enough that their participation doesn't matter, they start to believe that their participation doesn't matter. And these 50 to 60,000 young Latinos who come of voting age, do you remember how often that is? It might be, oh, I'll get you the footnotes right to me. What if we say their opinion doesn't matter, then are they going to register to vote? Are we gonna, I mean, I think this is part of it. This is all about, you don't matter, you're not of us, you are not part of we, and they'll start to believe it. I think that is very, very dangerous.
My question might be less the question after the dialogue ensuing after the first question. But immediately what hit me when I was sitting there, and maybe unanswerable in a sense, but if this starts to move on birthright citizenship currently under current babies or children born, what's the possibility of retroactive, we usually see grandfather type clauses, that type of thing, but for some reason in what you're setting up and the past history that may be on the books or something that might be pulled from, I guess my question is, what's preventing a retroactive type action on current citizens of foreign ancestry? I'm Deb Odell. I also work at one of the school districts here and work with primarily our immigrant populations.
I imagine that some of you know that the Dominican Republic has recently repealed birthright citizenship and made it retroactive to the 1920s. What this means for people who share that island of Haiti and the Dominican Republic is that it's mostly people of African descent, generations later, finding out now, because they don't have papers, because they couldn't afford a lawyer, that they, who speak Spanish and live in the Dominican Republic, are being told you don't belong here, you don't have citizenship, and we could deport you to Haiti. It's clearly not just a problem in the United States. You know, we're seeing record numbers of refugees, and when I travel abroad and I come home, I get this, you know, kind of, you know, there's things that we need to, that are not working here, but there are a lot of things that work. And one of the things that works is birthright citizenship, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really glad we have it. You want to say anything else? Other folks, come on up. Donna? I want you all to know that Donna gave us 11 questions, and I said, did we get a semester? And so we didn't answer them all, but I hope you get to talk amongst yourselves. And we're available to talk afterwards. I hope you enjoy your group discussion. I want to say, because I know a lot of you are educators, once again, this film is available for educational institutions, for nonprofits. We want folks to use it together. We don't want people to watch it on their iPhone. We want you to watch it together and talk.
Let's hear it for Ann and Roland. And I'm so sorry we don't have the time so that you can watch the whole film. The problem is that if we watch the whole film, then you wouldn't get to talk. And that's 3/4 of what this is all about, is to give you the opportunity to talk. So, how many of you have evaluations? You all should have one because we tried to hand them to you. On the back of the evaluation, in yellow, bright yellow, are some questions. There's some directions for how you start your group, and I'm going to do part of this with you. The ground rules for race talks, and this is a lot of what makes race talks successful. The ground rules. Listen to each other with curiosity. You know, don't try and interrupt a person and tell them they're wrong. Don't be like Donna, just listen, okay? Respect differences, agree to disagree. That's one of the things that I think is so profound. Most people are arguing, trying to make somebody else agree with their point of view. Just agree that this person has a point of view and hear it. And then they can sit and listen and hear yours too. speak from the self and from the heart. I'm notorious for saying I know somebody who, and I really do know somebody who, but talk about your own experience. Talk about your feelings, your thoughts. Don't talk about someone else's. You know how you say, well, you know, I have this friend who, you know. Respect confidentiality. Because you are talking to people, and this is amazing, whether you realize it or not, there are a lot of people who will come here and will share things that they haven't told their own family. So they're caught up in the moment, they're caught up in what's going on. So you can share, since you're part of a conversation, you can go back and say, well, I talked to this person, this is what we talked about. You have the right to do that. What you don't have the right to do is say, I talked to Joe Jones and he lives over on 17th Street and Joe said that Harold did, that kind of thing. So respect people's confidentiality. Contribute honestly and positively. Assume positive intent. You know, one of the things that we're doing something here that most people in this country and in the world don't do. We're going to be talking about race. And people are scared to do that. Do it. It's okay. And just know, you will put your foot in your mouth. Don't worry about it. We have facilitators. How many facilitators are here? Raise your hand. Stand up, facilitators. So we have facilitators who are here, and they will help you folks by being in a group, or they will come around. And if there's a problem, then let the facilitator help. As a facilitator, oh, I'm one too. My job is to help you take your foot out of your mouth and to keep somebody else from putting their foot somewhere else on you. So that's what the facilitator's job is. Be open to new ideas. And I used to say relax and enjoy, and a friend of mine, a white guy, said, don't put that down there. White folks are not comfortable talking about race. So don't say that. So he said, you should put down, you may experience discomfort. So understand that you may experience discomfort, but I also want you to sit back and relax and enjoy. So go ahead. You can do small group discussion. You can do one-on-one, however you want to do it. We just want you to talk to somebody. And like I said, be bold. Get up and go speak to somebody you don't know. And say to people, hey, I want to sit and talk to you. Because then you'll get a much better perspective of what's going on. I mean, look at Ann Galisky. Would you know she was, you know, a reprobate and had come across the border and didn't, I mean, you wouldn't know that unless Ann told you that. So you don't ever know who you're talking to. That was a joke, you guys. I'm not going to tell my jokes to you anymore. You're supposed to laugh when I tell a joke. This is a bad crowd, I tell you. Okay, so anyway, there's some small group discussion stuff. I kind of have, you know, you introduce yourselves. It tells you how to do that, yada, yada, yada. And then there's some questions down at the bottom. So, all right, go for it. We're going to talk for the next 50 minutes, then we're going to stop and then have the drawing and do all that other cleanup stuff. But I'm glad you're here. Thanks a lot.
And how many people in a group?
How many people in a group? How many you want? I mean, you know, you can have 2 people, you can have 10 people. Ordinarily, we're in the gym and we sit at large tables, and so ordinarily we have about 10 to 12 people in a group. The problem is that it's not easy to hear in here because you're on a couch. So, whatever you want to do, go for it. And I'll be back. I never said that before, so this is really important. So now, a couple of things we need you to do. We need you to fill out that evaluation, because this is the year. Next month will be the beginning of our 6th year, and this is the year I vow I'm going to get grants and get a paycheck. So we need your information so we can tell them that we have people coming. And what you think is important. What you think is important. So please fill that out and write comments. And like I said, if you know of someone who has a film that is about, that is by and about people of color, please put on your evaluation so I can get in touch with those folks. The other thing is that I want you to be eyeballing folks in your group here. And the folks you are eyeballing is you're sizing somebody up for friendship. I didn't say lustship, I said friendship. Meaning, and it doesn't have to be, you know, you just are going to hook up. And Kathy, where are you? Kathy, stand up. And Lisa, the one here in the red who says I've put her into indentured servitude. Lisa and Kathy met at Race Talks. Lisa's not going to be in the drawing because Lisa cheats. She wins all the time. So she can't be in the drawing, but this is your chance to get $30 for you and somebody else who's here to go and have a meal together. So be looking at that person. Tony has papers, the little strips of papers. Now I'm going to say one more time how you do this. You put your name on one piece of paper. Your name, phone number, email. Tony's going to put her name, for me, on this one. Her contact information. We are exchanging. And then we take a third piece of paper and put just Tony and Donna and our last names, and then it goes in the basket so that we can draw out a name for the Lou and Eve. You shouldn't be leaving. Goodbye. I know them. So anyway, so we're going to have the drawing so that you can have a free meal and get to know someone. Kathy and Lisa have been friends for a couple of years now. And Lisa's met some other people through Race Talks that she's become friends with. So the whole idea is to get to know folks. That's the only thing we're here for, is to get to know people. And then we're going to walk around at the very end with a little donation basket, a couple of donation baskets, because we need to pay our speakers. These people come here basically for nothing. We pay them an honorarium of $75 a piece, but we need to raise enough money to pay them for coming to speak. So, that being said, I will come back in about 7 minutes and then we'll be off and running. So, and give your evaluation to your facilitator. And if you don't have a facilitator with a thingy here, what is that, nameplate, then pick somebody who's a facilitator. Okay? You guys are way too quiet. It makes me nervous when a group's this quiet. Okay, I'll be back in 7 minutes. Okie doke. Are you ready? Did everybody's name in here? Anybody who doesn't? Come on up here, girl. Come on.
Oh, I'll get it. Who was it?
Okay, and see, I forgot to do something else tonight that I normally do. I forgot to ask, how many people in here identify as a person of color? How many people in here identify as a person of color? 1, 2, see, I didn't think there was very many. Okay, so thank you. The reason I ask is because normally when we have discussions, I like to say, we like to have a person of color in every group, because it's hard to talk about race without having a person of color. It's kind of like talking about childbirth without having a woman in the group. So that was a joke. Never mind. I'm not telling you people any more of my stuff. You just, okay. Tony, you want to pick? I think it should be me and you. Okay. Kathy Bennett and Julie Boltzley. Where are you? Are you kidding, Kathy? I'm telling you, it's cheats. Kathy is Lisa's friend. I swear. Come on up here. I don't trust Lisa or Kathy. See, you guys are too quiet. They were noisy, and so they won. Let's hear it for the cheating Kathy, Lisa. I really do think they cheat. I really do. I think they put mojo on the paper or something. Well, thank you. So, there's two. Okay, yeah. Okay, because you don't want to do it. I want you. Okay, now next month, would you please somebody else win? Oh, hush, Lisa, I hear you back there laughing. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Remember, January 26th, Cleveland High School is Race Talks to the Community Police Forum. We'll have lots of police there to hear what you have to say. Also, February 9th is Black Girl in Suburbia, and hopefully we'll be in the gym. So we'll be able to sit there in a small group. Thank you so much for coming.